everybody, it's time to finish this series with Jigsaw, which came out in 2017, is directed by the Spirit Brothers. Let me just throw that over there, get that out of my way, and is written by Josh Goldfinger, whatever. It's written by the same two people who made Sorority Row and Piranha 3D, which is kind of ironic because Adam Marcus and Patrick Melton made Piranha 3 Double D. So is that fate? I don't know. But anyways, this one came out 7 years after Saw 3D in 2017, but the same budget of $10 million, made over $100 million. Did a pretty decent good job, and I heard that there might be a sequel to this movie, but this movie was originally titled Saw Legacy, which makes sense because there's a point in this movie where they say legacy, like it has some impact behind it, like it has a meaning. It's like, we created a legacy together. So it makes sense that this movie probably would have been called Saw Legacy. It would have been, I don't know, I'm not a fan of like subtitles, like Saw 7 or 8, Legacy. Just leave it at the numbers. I'm a numbers guy. Just leave it at the numbers. Fuck the subtitle. But this movie's called Jigsaw, so it's basically like creating a new path. So it's like, it doesn't really acknowledge those other ones, but this is still like, this is a movie that you can go into and you don't even really need to see the other ones. This movie takes place 10 years after the events of the first 7 movies, and this is also the first movie I ever saw at the theaters by myself. I couldn't get anybody to see this movie with me. I usually have somebody, but nobody wants to see this movie with me, so I went to see it by myself. So I will forever remember this movie as the first theater experience where I was by myself. So this movie has something personal to me about it, so I guess there's that. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Let's talk about this movie. Let's get ready for this week's Horror Franchise Wednesday.
Jigsaw.
Alright, let's talk about my positives, because there's not too many. Not too many, really. The opening of this movie is very different. Like, very different from all the other movies. This is not a graphic, like, Saw Trap open. It's just like a car that's in the middle of a car chase. Police cars, like, crashing into things. Like, water's flying everywhere. It's got this action music done. Does Charlie Clouser I don't think Charlie Clouser came back for this film. If he did, let me know. I can just look it up, whatever, fuck it. But it's got this action-packed, like an action movie vibe at the beginning. So it's a different opening compared to the rest. And I like it. It's very different. It doesn't, like, taint the other ones. It doesn't make you shake your head or anything. I like this open. Makes you ask questions. Makes you go, who's this guy? What's going on? He's like, I got this button. I gotta press it to start the game. And it makes you ask questions later on, like, why was that even necessary? Just start the game. Why does he have to press the button? Because Jigsaw, this guy is going to kill him anyways, but whatever. I don't have time to explain shit. Alright, whatever. If you've seen this movie, I'm sure you've already asked the same questions. Now, the cinematography in this movie, it's a different cinematographer, Armstrong, he did the first, like, 6, 7 movies, but this cinematography, the way this movie was shot, lit, it has its own feel, its own atmosphere and vibe. It's very, like, pretty, almost. Like, they're at this barn and just has, like, this, country vibe to it. And, it's very different. This movie stands out definitely from the rest. Like, you can't confuse this one with any of the other ones. Like, what was Saw 5 about again? Was it, you might confuse 5 or 6 or something, but this one's way different. Even the tone of this movie, the tone of this movie is not, like, gritty. It's not very torturous. It's more fun. It's more vibrant. The characters a little bit more funny in this movie. They just got comedic moments in this movie. It's very different in almost every aspect. I like the little update we got with Billy the Puppet. He's got the glowing red eyes now, but continuity that's taking a shit on the rest of the movies, because it's like, why would Jigsaw have glowing red eyes on his puppet for the first puppet, but then in the other 7 movies, there's no glowing red eyes? Makes no sense, because this is a prequel sequel. And that's another positive. I like that. Like, how many movies do you know of that are prequels and sequels at the same time? And that's the twist in this movie. I like the kills. The kills are alright. It's the way they're set up and the way they're done and explained that I hate. But the gore we get is good. Like, we get someone blended up, and then when the guy's leg gets chopped in like 4 pieces, and the girl gets acid injected into her neck. We saw some of that in part 6, but this one's okay. Get a little bit of CGI, but this movie, especially at the end, CGI galore at the end with the whole splitting head. Still one of the most creative deaths in the entire franchise is that octopus tentacle head thing happening. It's very cheesy, laugh out loud bad, but it's still fun. The twist in this movie is awesome. Alright, just when you see John Kramer, it's just like, whoa, this is a prequel. Because there's no way any logical person was like, oh my god, John Kramer has an evil twin? When? When did it happen? Why would it be an evil twin? And why would he come back from the grave? Like, if you thought that, that says something about you. If this movie went the supernatural route, this movie would be everybody's least favorite. Like, there's no fucking way. Like, at some moments in the movie, I was like, dear, like, I didn't think it was gonna happen, but there was moments I was like, dear God, do not tell me that this is supernatural shit. But it wasn't, and I was like, yes, prequel sequel. I'm fine with that. But yeah, we get this twist that, Jigsaw had yet another accomplice. How much he helped in the first 7 movies is not explained. We don't know anything about that. All we know is that Logan helped him make the reverse bear trap. That's it. That's all we got. Alright, so that's a negative right there, but I like that we got a little something. Just a little something to be like, yeah, he helped a little bit at the beginning, but then he went to war, became a POW, came back, and then his wife got killed, and then that set him off, and he built this trap to get the detective back. You know the story. I love that rock score when the blender trap's happening. Very awesome. And I love how, like, since this is like the beginning of Jigsaw's game, like this game that we're watching is supposedly the first one ever. Even though we technically did see the first one ever, it was Cecil pushing his face through those knives. That was the first one. I would say this is the second one. If we're going to go with the continuity of this story, what they're selling us, maybe this is the second one. So I like that there's like little flaws in it. Just little ones, like where she's able to escape out that door, but then he like, knocks her out. And the fact that she was able to climb up there and then stick that rebar like right through the wheel to stop the trap, but then it ends up going in a way. It kills that guy anyways, but just little tiny like flaws in his game showing that, yeah, he's learning, so it makes sense a little bit. And the pacing of this movie is pretty good. I mean, I think they did a good job. I mean, they had to juggle like 2 different storylines at the same time because they had to keep cutting back and forth between like the game and the investigation. I think they do a good job cutting back and forth. It doesn't like slow down. It doesn't spend too much time on either one. So the pacing's very good. It keeps you interested. It keeps you asking questions throughout the whole movie. You keep going between like the 3 or 4 red herrings that you get in this movie. You're like, all right, Halloran, no, Logan, no, this redhead chick who's a mortician, who's way too beautiful to be a mortician. A woman who looks like that would never, ever want to cut up bodies. Like, get the fuck out of here. She should be a model, not cutting up people, and she's getting off on it. I mean, she's the most ridiculous red herring of the whole movie, but it still works. It still makes you ask questions. But yeah, those are my only positives. I mean, Tobin Bell, yeah, I liked him coming back. He did a good job. He's still playing Jigsaw. Does his thing. He's another positive, but the rest is just negatives. Alright, let's get into it. The biggest problem I have with this movie is the writing. It's so convoluted and so, like, everything works out perfectly. Like, I said that for a couple other ones, but holy shit, this is not a good example. I don't know what it is. This movie is the epitome of everything just working out perfect. Alright? Just like crystal ball like shit. Like, I see the future. I know what everyone's gonna do. This movie's writing implies that John Kramer just knows everything about every living soul that no one else could possibly know. Almost like he's like a priest and he got everybody in this game's confession at some point. He knows too fucking much. He knows about this guy causing a car to crash to kill a few people that he never told anybody about. He knows about how much money this woman stole out of a purse that caused a woman with asthma to die that she never revealed to anybody. He knows all this. Conveniently, his next door neighbor was a woman who suffocated her child and then blamed it on her husband, and the husband went crazy and hung himself from the depression of thinking he killed his own daughter, and that bitch was lying the entire movie like, my husband did it. I mean, it makes sense. When you kill your own child, your infant child, with a pillow, and then you blame your husband, and then your husband kills himself from that guilt that he didn't need to feel at all because it was you. You would have to do some major mental gymnastics to convince yourself to just be able to live another day. Like, so at this point in her life, she's used to saying, it was my husband, it was my husband, it was my husband. So at this point, she's like convinced mentally. I believe it. Because at no point does she ever admit it. John has to come out and be like, yeah, I know what you did. This is what you did. You won't admit it. I've been trying to get you to admit it the entire fucking movie, but you never would, so I'm going to say it. But how he knew? Who the fuck knows? Because like I said, she never told anybody. He didn't see it, but he just heard it. Come on. And the fact that these two people go into the silo You know, because you need two people, because one of them has to hoist someone up to reach the tape, so that makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is how Jigsaw knew which two people would wind up in there and which person would wind up in the leg trap. The guy lands in the leg trap because he sees a door, it says no exit, and he goes to like bang at it, and that's when his foot lands in a special spot that was designed for in case someone tried to break out. Just the sling's lining up perfect. But his leg lands in there, and they just leave him there, and they go in the silo because the door just opens. It's like, come on in. This is where I need you right now. So they go in there, door shuts, obviously. They're locked in there, and then these plasma TVs or flat screens. This movie takes place in 2004, 5, when the first movie happened. Were there flat screens back then? Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there were, because plasmas were even thicker back then. Like, they were like a little bit thick on the back, and if you had them on too long, they would like burn the image on it very quickly. Plasmas weren't that good when they first came out. Flat screens are good, but just like I'm saying, I don't know, maybe there's a continuity issue with the flat screens, so I want to point it out. But the tape says, Mitch, he's the one. No, Mitch is the motorcycle guy. Okay, whatever the other guy's name is, he's the one in the leg trap, and the tape knew that. The tape knew which two would end up in there and which one would be the stupid son of a bitch getting his leg caught. How the fuck did he know that? There are so many things I can point out. I can make this a 30-minute video. You want to go for it? I'll try, because there's so much. The beginning of this movie, okay, there's a guy sleeping. He's got the, it's the chum buckets from like SpongeBob. They got the buckets on their head. I don't know what the fuck for. That makes no sense. Is it necessary? No. It's not explained at all. What's going to happen in the bucket when they land up against the wall? It's just going to protect their head from getting chopped up? That's the only explanation, except when we see the chum bucket guy dead later on. They find this guy's body in the woods, whatever. Yeah, how did they hang that body in the woods in this public park without getting caught? Logan, because it's Logan. Spoiler alert, whatever. Yeah, of course it's spoiler alert. This whole series is. How did Logan get that body up in the park without being caught? And then why was his head, the guy in the bucket, his head was chopped diagonally up like that. And all those saw blades on the wall were like this, horizontal. So how did he go up? It makes no sense. He had a protective bucket on, did he not? But they make you think, that the whole beginning, this whole main game is happening at the same time as, present day. So you think these bodies that you're seeing, thrown out into the public, you're like, whoa, is Jigsaw, John Kramer just walking in, taking the body, walking out of the game, throwing bodies into the city? You're asking questions, but it's like, how did Logan find these people that just so happen to be people that Halloran let off that look almost exactly like the people in this game that we're watching? Convenience. Oh, and the fact that the blonde in Logan just went to the roof of the building. He went to the roof of the hospital and threw this blonde that was already dead off the building. She's dead already, but she splats. And then we look at her body. We think it's the girl in the game that we're watching, but it's not. That's the twist. But she just so happens to have an acid injection in her neck, just like the woman we saw. Just little things that make it seem so goddamn convenient. What are the odds that the game we're watching happened exactly like this other game we're not seeing? Like the same decisions, same exact decisions are being made. And if those two people are dead and there's only one person left, the blender guy in this game we're not seeing, who put him in the blender? Did he just get caught by the rope too that Mitch got caught by? Another convenience. This is something that happens in a lot of movies, where somebody will be standing somewhere or they'll walk somewhere and all of a sudden they're in this rope trap where like rope wraps around their foot and then they get like hung from a tree. It happens in this movie and it pisses me off in every movie because the rope is like this big around and just big enough for your foot to like be perfectly like in the middle of it just to get wrapped up. Was Jigsaw like in the back somewhere like, come on, just step on it? He stepped up, flipped the switch, and then he just gets pulled up. The timing and the fact that he was even standing there is fucking ridiculous. And his game makes no sense. Like, he has to pull the brake, but to get to the brake, he basically has to get to the bottom of the blender that's shrinking and shrinking as he gets further into it. So he basically has to die. No matter what. That game was not winnable at all. How the fuck do you win it? We got stupid character decisions, like the acid neck girl. She knew which one was the right one, but she was still too scared shitless to try it out. Like, you had a chance of injecting water into you, which I'm not an expert on the body anatomy. I have a sister who's a nurse. Maybe she can correct me on this. But I think if you do inject water into your body, it kills you. Or maybe that's like if you inject it in your vein. I don't know. But you see it in movies, or like people inject air. I think that's what it is, air. If you inject air into your body, it kills you. Correct me if I'm wrong. Whatever. Fuck it. I'm not an expert. But she knew which one was most likely the correct one. She didn't make the decision, so she was gonna get them all hung. Stupid bitch. She deserved that ass in her neck. The whole theme of this movie is basically just tell the truth. The truth will set you free. But the traps are just so lazy. Like, the way they're set up, the way they're executed. Like, I just gotta cut my arm for like a split second and I can go free in the first room. We just gotta inject you with one of these needles. And you know which one it is. Why won't you just say it? And then the third trap is basically, the blender, the silo thing. Slash, this guy has to land his foot here. So convenient. But let's talk about that silo thing. Alright, so it fills up with grain all the way up to here. And their arms are available. After a couple of weapons fall and land, don't you think that you would pick up one of those weapons to kind of like hit the other shit away from hitting you? Because you got all these things landing and conveniently, just little things hit them. Like the chick has like nails that land on her instead of like just like 9-inch nails that just land, stab perfectly in her instead of just like landing sideways and like, oh, that was nothing. But this one guy gets like a knife in him. And instead of just pulling that knife out and like their arms are available. I would have taken something and just like smacked every falling object out of my fucking way. And then the final game. The final game is we got a shotgun and the two people, one guy missing his leg now, and the other bitch who killed her child. And it's like John Kramer puts the shotgun in the middle. He says, here's the key to your freedom. And that's wordplay. I like that. That's a positive. We got a little bit of wordplay in this movie. And I love it when we get that in the series. He puts the keys to their collars in the bullet. But he doesn't tell them that. He kind of just gives them that little, oh, here's the key to your freedom. Literally. But she shoots the gun, and he somehow engineered the weapon to shoot backwards, and she shoots basically half her face off, and the key's shattered. That guy's fucked. But that's even a lame trap, too. It's like, here's your trap. One of you has to shoot each other. That's it. I wasn't crazy about the traps in this movie. It's just so convenient. Everything just lines up perfectly. Let's talk about something else. Okay. They go to dig up John Kramer's grave. Alright, because this is 10 years later. And they found his blood underneath the fingernails of this victim. Because apparently John Kramer has blood vials just sitting around somewhere for Logan to have access to. They go to his grave, and they find out that the guy at the beginning of the movie, his body was placed in there. Edgar. So we got this fresh new corpse in there. Like, oh fuck. Okay. I'm just finding all these conveniences as I'm explaining it to you. Logan sneaks into the hospital where Edgar is basically in a coma, wakes him up, slices his throat, takes him out of the room. The cop who's like guarding the room is conveniently asleep and nobody can see shit. Apparently this hospital has no cameras. But he buries Edgar and the press, hundreds of people, they line up at the grave. And they don't notice that grave that was just recently dug up to put Edgar in it was already dug the fuck up? Did Logan plant new grass on top? Because I have to ask that question. When they got there, there was no new grass. Or I don't think we got to see that process. We just kind of got there and they were already like digging it up. But the fact that there was a new body in there would mean that there was already somebody who recently dug up that grave. So therefore, there would be fresh new dirt just laying on top. And nobody saw that and was like, why is there fresh new dirt? Somebody was tampering with this grave that's been sitting here for 10 years. Nobody asked that question. They just found the body in there. It was Edgar. Oh shit, maybe John Kramer's a ghost now. Oh my god. It's like, did the Logan plant fresh grass? I don't know. It's just so stupid. Logan plants the shredded up body from the blender thing in this closet at the warehouse to kind of like frame almost his little girlfriend, But but then towards the end when he's like trying to frame Halloran, he's like, who found the body? It was Halloran. Yeah, convenient. And what if they didn't find that body? Ask that question. Because how he found that body, it was a secret door. If they didn't find it, that wouldn't have worked. And who keeps puzzle pieces in their fucking fridge? It's like the way he's framing Halloran is so juvenile. Like, they think Halloran's that fucking stupid. The fact that Logan even knew that Halloran was going to be stalking him to the barn. And how his little partner, the hothead, redhead chick who shouldn't be a mortician because she's too beautiful, would even find out about that barn. And how nobody else ever found out about that barn. Nobody ever knew about this barn, not even Strom. Nobody else in the previous 6 movies decided to go look at this barn. We never got word of it before. Just so many questions. That's all this movie does, is makes me ask questions about the writing, because the writing is the biggest issue with this movie. So much convenience. And like the red, okay, I appreciate the red herrings. Like, there's some good red herrings, so you don't really know. I like the mystery, but Eleanor, I already said it before, Eleanor, she's too much of a red herring. She is obsessed with Jigsaw, and she actually collects and makes her own like replicas of the things. But all that is really is just like a little wink and nod service to the fans. Like, hey, remember that trap? Hey, remember that trap? Remember the angel like trap for like Detective Carey? And remember the peephole trap? She has all this shit set up. And it's like, really? Come on. Get the fuck out of here. But if there's one thing I would definitely take out of this movie, it's the fact that that trap that we see in the warehouse, the blender one, she flat out says, supposedly John used this in his first game ever. Why would you say that? Like, that's in the middle of the movie. Like, not even close to the end. Like, there's plenty of time between that and the twist. So that right there ruins the twist to me. On a second viewing, it's like, wow, like, I think maybe I noticed on the first viewing, but that kind of ruins the twist right there. Because then you see that trap with Mitch right after that scene. So it's like, so now there's two of those traps. This can't be happening present day. The fact that the movie was a prequel should have been revealed with John Kramer taking his hood off. Not her saying that trap was used in his first one ever. Just saying. I have a problem with that line in this movie. And I have a problem with a lot of shit. But take that line out. Okay, so we find out that these couple of tapes that we hear in the present day, not the game going on, but the present day with Logan and Halloran. We find out that these tapes are they're all the tapes from the first 7 movies, and Logan's taking words out of all of them to splice them together to make like his own special, like, customized tapes to make everybody think he's still alive, that John Kramer's alive. But he's saying words in these present day tapes that he's never said in any of the other 7 movies. So therefore, it's bullshit. In my final negatives, the CGI head thing, I like the kill, but too much CGI. They could have used some more practical. Know when to cut away. Know when you're showing too much CGI. And there's no likable characters. Like I said, Saw 1, some likable characters. Saw 3, some likable characters. This one, no likable characters whatsoever. I know that's not really a necessity for this franchise. 2 and 4, I fucking hated Riggs. He was a dumbass. All he had to do was stay home, and that movie wouldn't have existed. But he kept doing shit, whatever. I'm not talking about Saw 4 no more. But just no likable characters in this movie. Besides Logan, I feel bad for him, but yeah, that's it. This movie, I know I took a giant shit on it just now, just talking about all the conveniences, but yeah, just the writing. The writing is too convoluted, too, like, convenient to me to even, like, enjoy. It just makes me ask too many questions. It's still a fun movie, it's just trying to be fun. I enjoy it some. So therefore, when it comes to Jigsaw, I would recommend that you just go out and rent this at Redbox. But don't get me wrong, like, this movie is still fun. It's got great cinematography. Like some of the traps, there's definitely good gore to be had in this movie, and it does keep you guessing. It does keep the mystery alive throughout most of the film, and I really like the twist. So yeah, I'm not shitting on it completely. It's not too terrible, but Jesus, all those writing flaws. It's too many. The Mr. Head Award, even though I don't like the CGI, is definitely going to go to Detective Halloran, who gets his head split open 8 different ways, like an octopus tentacles just splitting out everywhere. He gets the lasers on his face. Very brutal, very unique for this franchise. And the Mr. Twig Award's gonna go to the baby killer who got her face shot. I think she deserved a lot worse than that. That bitch deserved more. No redeeming qualities for this character. She does not make any redemption. She doesn't do anything besides be a total bitch. And she deserved more. Alright, those are my thoughts on Jigsaw. What are your thoughts on this movie? Did you like it? Is it a necessary sequel, or do you wish they just would have stopped after Saw 3D? This isn't really a necessary sequel, but I'm glad we got it, because I'm always for more sequels. Even if they end up sucking, I'll still go there and watch it. But those are just my thoughts. What are your thoughts on this movie? Let me know what you thought, and hit this like button if you want to support this video. And if you're not a subscriber yet, you can do so by clicking on my cartoon face in 5 seconds to see more content. And until next time, I'll be easy.